Welcome to Innovation Brief by IdeaScale, where we turn your work team into innovators.
How confident are you that your organization's big, ambitious vision is more than just words? I mean, are you confident it's actually translating into tangible results across all your teams?
That's a great question, and it's something that a lot of organizations struggle with.
Yeah, and that's precisely what we're going to be exploring in this deep dive today. We're going to be talking about enterprise planning.
All right.
And for anyone who's not totally familiar with the term, what does that really mean? What is enterprise planning?
Well, in a nutshell, you could say that enterprise planning is the process of setting company policies, processes, and budget requirements, really, to make sure you are hitting the objectives of the company's much larger strategic plan.
And a key thing there, I think, is that considering all the internal and external factors.
Right.
So it's not just looking internally, it's really looking at the whole playing field, so to speak. So our mission in this deep dive is to give everyone a clear understanding of how this all works, what enterprise planning really is, why it matters so much, and especially for those of you listening who are chief innovation officers, CEOs, directors, tech leaders, how can you use it to drive innovation and actually achieve those strategic goals?
Yeah, that's a great objective.
All right. So let's just dive right in and start with the basics. What is enterprise planning really all about?
It's a management level process, usually led by the CEO, but it's really about laying out that execution plan for the company's strategic vision, the high level vision.
So it's about bridging that gap between the big vision and the day-to-day stuff, the rubber meets the road kind of thing.
Exactly.
And what are some of the core elements, the things that you really need to nail down when you're creating this enterprise plan?
So there are a few key elements. You've got to think about budgeting for your resources, right?
Yeah.
That's your people, your tech, your infrastructure, anything you need to actually execute.
The fuel for the machine.
Exactly, yeah. Then there's the balance sheet side of things. Debt, profit margins, pricing, all those fun financial things.
This nitty-gritty.
Right, and of course you need to set those company-wide policies, keeping legal considerations in mind always, and then it goes a little deeper than that. We also need to establish how all the different teams are going to collaborate.
Okay.
And what tools they need to be effective.
And is this like a static document, or are we talking about something that's more dynamic?
Well, typically it's done on an annual basis. You kind of set the plan for the year, but it does need to be revisited and revised as needed.
Yeah, I was going to say the world changes so fast, you got to be able to adapt.
Exactly. So it's a living document in that sense.
So let's talk benefits. Why should our listeners really care about all of this? What are the real tangible advantages of having a solid enterprise plan in place?
Well, I think for a lot of leaders, the biggest thing is it just gives you that confidence that you're actually going to achieve those big strategic goals.
Confidence that it's not just a wish list, it's actually an actionable plan.
Right. It's like, okay, this is how we're actually going to get there. It's not just words on a page.
I like that, turning vision into action. Now, I'm also thinking about all the people on those teams. How does enterprise planning impact them?
Well, I think it really can improve the relationship between employees and leadership.
Interesting.
Because it fosters a sense of transparency and inclusivity.
Yeah.
Everyone can see where the company's going, how their work fits into the bigger picture.
Yeah, that sense of purpose is so powerful.
Right. And when you know that your work matters, you're more likely to be engaged and motivated.
Absolutely. Earlier, you mentioned roadmaps, and a lot of our listeners are deeply involved in creating roadmaps for their teams. How does enterprise planning connect to that process?
It's the foundation. Think of it like you can't build a house without a strong foundation.
Got it. So the enterprise plan is the foundation for those roadmaps.
Exactly. It sets the structure. It defines things like the reporting structure, how different teams interact, the process for approvals, resource allocation, and all those critical elements.
And without that clarity, I imagine it's easy to run into roadblocks and conflicts.
Oh, absolutely. Teams could be working at cross purposes, priorities could be misaligned, and it could be a recipe for frustration and delays.
So this helps prevent all of that.
It creates that alignment and minimizes wasted effort.
Okay. You also mentioned processes earlier. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. The enterprise plan is where you establish those structured processes for things like communication. How do we communicate internally? What about project delivery workflows? How do we manage those? How do teams grow and develop? What's the process for adopting new technologies?
That's a lot to think about.
It is. Even something as simple as how a design team prioritizes requests from different departments, it's all outlined in the enterprise plan.
So it's about removing those bottlenecks, those points of friction.
Exactly.
What about decision-making and authority? How does the enterprise plan address those aspects?
Right. So it's very important to define roles, responsibilities, and the scope of authority for different positions and teams.
Makes sense.
This helps to minimize conflict and duplication of effort.
Because everyone knows who's responsible for what.
Right. And it also fosters collaboration because everyone understands their role in the bigger picture.
Yeah, that clarity is so important.
Now, one interesting thing is that this delegation of authority doesn't have to be completely rigid.
Okay, how so?
The plan can outline processes for more dynamic delegation. So maybe based on performance, a team lead could have expanded authority for a specific project.
So it allows for some flexibility and recognizes that things can change.
Exactly.
Now, in today's work environment, with so many remote teams and complex projects, how does enterprise planning help to keep everyone connected and working towards the same goals?
One of the biggest dangers in larger organizations, especially remote ones, is what we call siloed operations. Teams get disconnected, they start working on things that might be outdated, they lose sight of the big picture.
That's a real risk.
It is, and the enterprise plan helps to prevent this by ensuring that all team-level tasks are directly tied to the overarching company goals.
So it's that constant reminder of why we're doing what we're doing.
Exactly. It keeps everyone connected, even if they're physically separated.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here in terms of what enterprise planning is and why it matters. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the actual process. What are the key steps involved in creating a robust enterprise plan?
Well, it all starts with the strategic plan. That's the overarching document that lays out the company's vision, goals, and objectives.
That's the big picture stuff.
Right. The enterprise plan is then derived from that strategic plan. It's the how-to guide for actually achieving those strategic goals.
So the strategic plan says we want to go here, and the enterprise plan says this is how we're going to get there.
Exactly.
Okay, so step one, develop the strategic plan. What's next?
Next, you got to invest in some solid market research.
So we're talking about really understanding the external factors, the landscape that the company operates in.
Exactly. What are the political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors that could impact us?
The pestle analysis.
Right. You can't just make assumptions. You have to look at the data.
So you're making informed decisions based on real insights.
Absolutely.
And what about looking internally? How do we assess our own strengths and weaknesses?
That's the next step. And there are lots of tools we can use for this. OKRs, SWOT analysis, the BCG matrix, cost-benefit analysis, you name it.
It's about getting a clear picture of where we stand internally.
Right. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are the opportunities? And what are the threats?
And then we take all of that information, the external analysis, the internal analysis, and we start to actually create the plan.
Exactly. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty, defining processes, guidelines, protocols, selecting technologies, and setting up governance structures.
So it's about turning all those insights into concrete actions.
Right. And this document then guides every aspect of the company's operations, from product development to marketing to sales to HR, everything.
It's the playbook for success.
And one crucial thing to remember is that it's not set in stone.
You mentioned feedback earlier, right?
Exactly. Before the plan is finalized, you need to get feedback from all the teams involved. Make sure everyone's on board, make sure the targets are realistic, make sure the resources are there.
So it's a collaborative process.
Absolutely. It's about getting everyone aligned and working together towards those shared goals.
So in a nutshell, this deep dive has been all about taking that high-level vision, that ambition, and translating it into something real, something tangible, something actionable.
And doing it in a way that fosters alignment, clarity, and a culture of innovation.
Right. Because when everyone knows where they're going and how they fit in, that's when the real magic happens.
That's when innovation thrives.
And for all of you listening, if you're ready to turn your work team into innovators, I encourage you to book a demo for a free trial at IdeaScale.com.
And be sure to subscribe for more innovation briefs every Tuesday and Friday.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode, so please share your comments below.